Peter Carbwell is here, talk presenter, of course, and political commentator. Tell us what actually happened in PMQs. Another one of those ones that ran over.
Yeah,
so we got you in a little bit later,
massively
so
ran
you could
over.
hear all of it.
There was a reasonable joke about Liz Truss writing Keir Starmer letter saying, I got a letter from a Conservative in a Labour constituency. Haha, it's Liz Truss. But there was lots and lots of meat in this, and actually the confidence in Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor,
who was sitting right behind him,
looking, you know, a little bit less confident than sometimes she had. But how much confidence did Keir Starmer have? Well, that's what Kemi Badenoch asked him.
Right, well, let's watch the first clip we've got about that issue. Let's if you watch and listen to that.
At the budget, Labour were congratulating themselves for having the first female Chancellor, instead of ensuring the country had someone actually qualified to do the job. Speaker, the Prime Minister claims he has full confidence in the Chancellor, but the markets clearly do not. Yesterday, the Chancellor repeated her promise to have just one budget per year to provide businesses with certainty. The talk in the city is that she can't meet her fiscal rules, and there will need to be an emergency budget. So does the Prime Minister stand by the Chancellor's commitment that there will be only one budget this year?
Prime Minister.
She'll be pleased to know the Chancellor will be in place for many, many years to come. She'll outstrip them.
Well, I mean...
And he didn't really give an answer on whether there'd be another budget this year.
Exactly. And then again, can I point out, though, most Tory ministers and chancellors in recent years said, oh, there's only going to be one fiscal event a year. Well, and they always end up having another one. And we had that from, you know, COVID onwards and probably before then, too. Rachel Reeves didn't look very confident there. As you said, you'll be able to see it on the screen. But also, he was much more sort of full of praise and saying confidence in Rachel Reeves' future than he was when he was asked a question earlier in the week, when he was asked, you know, could he guarantee she'd be Chancellor until the next election, at the next election, and he refused to answer that twice. And
all he needed to say was yes. And I was speaking to someone about this yesterday who said, a former political advisor, he said, surely, knowing he was taking questions from the press yesterday, surely you would say, right, the press are going to ask you, do you have full faith in Rachel Reeves? Will she be here for the rest of the Parliament? And there didn't seem to be any real answer prepared.
They're just really bad at this.
And then later on, the Prime Minister's official spokesman at Lobby, at the briefing for political journalists, then said, oh yes, she'll be here for the rest of the Parliament.
After you've had all the headlines?
Yes.
I don't think she will be Chancellor at the next election. I don't think he thinks that she's going to be Chancellor next election.
Maybe he won't be Prime Minister. But another female minister he had major problems with this week, of course, and for the last couple of weeks, was Tulip Siddiq, and Kemi Badenoch asked about her as well.
He didn't have a problem with her. She's his big mate in the North London lefty dinner party circuit. He didn't want her to go at all.
Really funny how Louise Haigh, who's a northern woman, was thrown under a bus as the Transport Secretary.
By herself.
Yes, by herself.
Don't get a conviction for fraud and don't lie to the Prime Minister about your conviction for fraud, and then you won't.
Call me old-fashioned, but yeah.
He was pretty ruthless with her, pretty ruthless with Sue Gray, held on for 25 days to Tulip Siddiq, of course, the City Minister, anti-corruption minister, being probed in Bangladesh about possible links to corruption with her aunt, who is the former Bangladeshi Prime Minister. I mean, it is extraordinary. Let's have a watch and listen to that exchange.
What does it tell us about his judgment that yesterday he said he was saddened that his close friend resigned? This was an anti-corruption minister under criminal investigation for corruption. Mohammed Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner advising Bangladesh, said London properties gifted to the former city minister may be proceeds of robbery. So, will the Prime Minister offer Bangladesh the full support of our National Crime Agency in ensuring that any properties bought with stolen funds are properly investigated?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the former City Minister referred herself to the independent advisor. He found, as she well knows, there was no breach of the code. He knows that he found there was no wrongdoing, and the former minister fully cooperated.
Well, the Prime Minister there, but I'm very arrogant at the ethics advisor.
This is all very tiresome,
isn't it?
It's all
very, well, I can't believe you're asking about the small matter of me losing my second minister and my third senior member of my administration. He lost Sue Gray, his chief of staff as well. Just 6 months in. This is extraordinary. Everyone says there's been no wrongdoing. OK. The ethics advisor found that Tulip Siddiq he believed, inadvertently misled the public when basically she told something that was not true to a newspaper, saying, you were given this 700-grand property in King's Cross. by this close ally of your Bangladeshi aunt, your Prime Minister aunt, who's been accused of God knows what, how many horrific crimes. He's been ousted from power, well, then was to be ousted from power in Bangladesh. Just want to ask, because it's not a question, I've asked our audience. On the many occasions when you've been gifted a £700,000 home,
who amongst us can honestly say
they've not been given a 700 grand? It happens all the time to everyone, obviously.
I too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you know who they were from?
No, I mean the Bangladeshi regime, by all means, can buy me a dodgy property if they want to.
I'm absolutely up for that too.
They haven't so far. But yes, it is this sort of it's all a bit tiresome. She's done nothing wrong. Also, the question again, not answered. The question from Kemi Badenoch saying, will the National Crime Agency help with this, because there's a major corruption probe into the regime, the administration of Tulip Siddique's aunt. There are clearly properties here that are linked in some way. Would the National Crime Agency actually help? And Keir Starmer didn't answer that bit.
No. Well, to be fair, no Prime Minister's ever answered a question properly.
Yes, or leaders of the opposition.
Yes, exactly. It rather throws people when they do. Like, what happened? Someone answered a question. What do we do now? It's all a bit confusing, isn't it? How damaging is this, though, to the Prime Minister? Because he has this incredibly arrogant air and this very tetchness. It's like, I'm rather above all of this. But, you lose your Chief of Staff, you lose a Cabinet Minister, you lost one of his close friends as Anti-Corruption Minister over a corruption probe, for goodness sake. It's not. People are questioning whether or not he can keep his Chancellor 6 months in.
It's not good.
The economy's in the doldrums. This is
and look at the polls as well, Julia. Look at the polls as well, Julia, where you have Reform UK that are within 1 point, the margin of error in a major poll by YouGov. There are serious questions for Keir Starmer. He's lost a lot of the momentum, if he had it in the first place, from 6 months ago. But actually, there was another row about Gerry Adams getting compensation. I know you've been covering it quite a lot on this programme as well, where he did actually give something of a definitive answer.
OK, well, let's have a watch and listen to that clip.
Now, it turns out his government may write a cheque to compensate Gerry Adams. Can the country afford 4 more years of his terrible judgments?
That act was unfit because, well, not least because it gave immunity to hundreds of terrorists and wasn't supported by victims in Northern Ireland, nor, I believe, by any of the political parties in Northern Ireland. The court found it unlawful. We will put in place this is a serious point, we will put in place a better framework. We're working on a draft remedial order and replacement legislation, and we will look at every conceivable way to prevent these types of cases claiming damages. And it's important I say that on the record.
Well, that's quite interesting, Peter. Actually, if you're watching that clip, you'll see Hilary Benn, the Northern Ireland Secretary, nodding away to that. He'll be the person overseeing this. But basically, they're going to change the law. They're putting human rights first, as Hilary Benn has said. But they're going to try and stop anyone claiming...
I don't know how they do that.
No, exactly.
I don't know how they do that. And actually, it was Northern Ireland questions just before Prime Minister's questions, as you correctly indicate there. And Hilary Benn said it's important we show there's an unequivocal commitment to human rights law. Well, what about victims? What about the fact that victims, in Northern Ireland and here in GB as well, will say, hold on a second.
What about us?
What about us?
And especially, and I can understand why, to move on, at some point, everyone's got to move on. You can't, truth and reconciliation.
It's a tough process. And no one's ever happy.
But not continuing to prosecute people and people being let out of prison who'd committed heinous murders of children even. It's very, very hard for people to cope with the idea that someone like Gerry Adams could claim compensation.
This is the last bit of the peace process, and the reason, and there's a reason why it isn't solved yet. But the key point we all have to remember is that Gerry Adams was never in the IRA.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. If he says it, listen, Gerry Adams said, must be true.
He's never lied.
Must be true. Did you ever get any voiceover? You're too young to get voiceover work being Gerry Adams. What was so funny is that when the government banned us hearing Gerry Adams, and then they had an actor who did Gerry Adams' voice, and then when Gerry Adams was it was various court cases, Gerry Adams was allowed to speak, and everyone went, oh, the actor was much better.
Well, the actor often was Stephen Ray, who then ended up married to the former IRA bomber Dolores Price. Well, there you are then. Learn new things every single day. Peter Cole, thank you very much.